As a landlord, do you know who is responsible for the damages done to your rental property? Is it you, the landlord, or is it your renter? Well, in today's video, we're going to be going over all the landlord responsibilities in regards to the rental property. We're going to be covering such things as like the condition inspection report, rental property repairs, emergency repairs, improvements to the unit, and damages done by roommates. To begin, we're going to be going over the residential rental laws that may apply in your area and how it affects you and the rental property repairs that are required to your rental unit. For example, in British Columbia and California, the law states that the rental property must be suitable for occupation. As a landlord, this means you are responsible for the repair of such things including the heating system, the plumbing system, the electrical system, structural areas like the roof, floor, and walls, and doors and locks. You are also responsible for the maintenance and repair of anything you've decided to include in the rent. These could be things such as appliances and furniture. The renter also has a responsibility for a few things in this area, such as making sure the unit is kept clean and in good order, and as well as letting the landlord know if there's any repairs or damages that have happened to the rental unit, such as bed bug infestation. The basic requirements of the landlord is to make sure the property meets the health and safety standards outlined in the laws and regulations in your area. It includes any facilities or anything else outlined in the rental agreement that both the renter and landlord have agreed upon. And lastly, it must be in good shape. The renter is responsible for making sure any damages done to the unit by them are repaired, making sure any damages done by the guest or a pet is taken care of and repaired, and making sure that the unit has a general level of tidiness and cleanliness, as well as keeping the common areas in the building clean. Before the renters move into your rental property, you'll want to walk through the property with them and do an inspection. You'll fill out a condition inspection report and you'll be able to note down any existing damages in the rental property. This will give a clear report for both you, the landlord, and your renter as to what existing damages are, so in the future if there are inspections or if the renter moves out, there's no confusion. Look for damages such as stains, cracks or holes in the walls, or any damage to the fixtures, etc. You'll want to take pictures of the unit so you can include this in their inspection report so there's no question later as to what damage there was and what the unit looked like previous to the renter moving in. If the unit is fully or partially furnished when you rent it out, you'll also want to include a section on the condition inspection report for any appliances, furniture, and other things you've left in the rental unit for the renter to use. Lastly, both you and the renter must sign and date the end of the condition inspection report, noting that you're both in agreement of what's laid out in the report and how the rental unit looks. You'll also need to provide a copy of your renter with this inspection report, and there are some rules and regulations outlining this that you may need to follow for your local area. When the renter notices something that needs to be repaired, they can inform you either verbally or in writing. As a landlord, once you're informed that a repair needs to be made, you are responsible for making that repair or addressing the issue with the tenant. If you don't, the tenant or renter may file a dispute resolution hearing, forcing you to address the repairs, and they may even force you to provide compensation to the renters in the interim and for that inconvenience. So what happens in the case of an emergency? Well, before an emergency ever strikes, you, the landlord, are responsible for providing emergency contact information to your renter, including the name and phone number they must contact in case of an emergency. If a disaster occurs, renters may conduct emergency repairs on their own if it meets the two following criteria. 1. Emergency repairs are needed and required. 2. They've tried contacting the emergency phone number and have had no luck in getting in contact or the repairs made. If the renters have had to initiate emergency repairs on their own, you're allowed to take over these repairs at any time. However, you are still responsible for compensating and reimbursing the tenants and renters for the repairs they've conducted. In this scenario, the renters would need to provide you with a claim for reimbursement. The the receipts for the repair, and a description of the emergency. The cost must be reasonable, and the damages that are being repaired cannot be caused by the renter or any guests they've had. If your renters decide they'd like to make some improvements to the unit, they must contact you first. If they don't contact you and continue on with making the improvements they'd like to make, when they move out and vacate the unit, you can require them to return the unit to its original condition. If they don't, you can return it to its original condition and charge them for that cost. As previously mentioned, renters are responsible for any damages done by them or their guests, but this does not include wear and tear. If you're renting to a renter that has a roommate, you may want to make them aware that they are joint and severally liable, not only for the rent, but also for any damages that happen to the unit. This means, if damage has been done by a roommate that has now skipped town, the roommate that is still living in the unit will be responsible for covering all the costs to repair the damages done. You may want to outline this in the rental agreement, just so both parties are aware. If you need to make repairs or enter the unit for any other reason, you will need to give notice to the renter, and there are some laws and regulations around this. If you're wondering what exactly those laws and regulations are, how and when you're allowed to enter your rental unit, you can check out another video we've done by clicking the small gray eye up in the corner there. It's rare for local bylaws to state that the unit must be painted after a renter moves out. If the renter unit is habitable and there's no peeling or a lot of chip paint on the walls, you should be fine to leave the unit as is and you won't need to paint before the new renter moves in. Mice, bats, and other unwelcome critters and creatures often fall under the same category as bedbugs. It's the landlord's responsibility to remove these critters and creatures from the premises and to make sure it's habitable for the renter to live in. There's also a responsibility of the renter to properly report anything that's happening within the rental property that is not suitable for living. Landlords are generally allowed to charge the renter of any repairs and cleaning services that are required to return the rental unit to its pre-tenancy condition. However, landlords are not allowed to use the renter's security deposit to address things that are about wear and tear. Lastly, you should double check with the rules and regulations in your local area. Many different provinces and states have specific rules around the regulations of repair and maintenance of a rental property, so it's good for you to understand those fully. And if you're looking for a reputable home insurance company to get a quote from, you can visit squareoneinsurance.com.